Good morning and welcome back to my makeshift studio. Today we're going to talk about an artist book by the artist Judy Watson. In 2005, Judy Watson heard a lecture given by Loris Williams at the University of Queensland. Loris Williams was the first Aboriginal to be trained as an archivist in Queensland. The title of her lecture was CASTE, C-A-S-T-E, Casting the Vote, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Rights to Vote in Queensland. In her lecture, Loris used a phrase that carried such weighty oppression for Judy Watson, whose maternal Aboriginal country is in northwest Queensland. That phrase was a preponderance of Aboriginal blood. Also in 2005, the State Library of Queensland commissioned a number of women artists to each make an artist book for an exhibition titled Suffrance, Women's Artist Books, to celebrate the centennial of women in Queensland gaining the right to vote in state elections. Judy, however, decided to make her book about the 40 years since 1965, when Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people gained the right to vote in Queensland's elections. And she titled that artist book, A Preponderance of Aboriginal Blood. For the project, with the assistance of archivists, Judy mined the Queensland archives for the material for this book. It was published in an edition of 5, plus some artist proofs, and it was held in this folder with a preponderance of Aboriginal blood embossed into the cover. The technique that Judy used was shin colle, and as you can see here, it looks as if blood has been splashed across the page. So she incorporated red ink into her etching to give that impression of blood. So as you can see here you can see that blood just been splashed across the page. So the technique is shin colle, which is a very lightweight paper. And in this instance, Judy wanted it to look like a document from an archive. So she's used a light brown coloured paper. Now the shin colle technique is with the etching plate and this light paper, which is pasted across the back of that sheet, and it is put down with the support paper on the etching plate and goes through the press, so that the image, the etched image, and the shin colle is all in one. The shin colle is adhered at the same time to the support paper as the etching goes through. Now we won't go through all the documents, but I do want to show you 2 pages in particular. The first page is this one. It's a letter written in 1949 by a lady asking the Director of Native Affairs in Brisbane if she and her husband are eligible to be enrolled on the electoral roll in Queensland. She receives a very curt reply. This is an unsigned letter in reply, and it has been sent by the assistant or the acting assistant director of Native Affairs. In this curt reply, he points out that even Aboriginals who hold exemption certificates are not eligible to enrol, to vote. He also notes that those persons with a preponderance of Aboriginal blood are not eligible to enrol. So that was in 1949. And as the addition of 5 plus a few artist proofs are in collections, we decided to republish A Preponderance of Aboriginal Blood in 2019, and it was launched at the State Library of Queensland in February this year. It's a very elegant publication designed by Michael Phillips. It has this lovely little red line which denotes that preponderance of Aboriginal blood on the spine, just down to the bottom. This also has a practical reason, because you can find it quite easily on your bookshelf. Judy designed the end papers, if I can get it open. She designed the front and back end papers, and all 15 pages from the original A Preponderance of Aboriginal Blood are reproduced. There is also an essay by Michelle Helmrich which puts into context the history behind A Preponderance of Aboriginal Blood and brings us into that whole history, which came from the original Act in 1897, the Aboriginals' Protection and Restriction of the Sale of Opium Act. Michelle also lists or describes each of the 15 pages, which is very helpful going through the book. The other thing we did was we reproduced in full that Act from 1897. All 9 pages are reproduced. This is an historical document, and one everyone should read. We also wanted to list all the missions and reserves that had been in Queensland from when Brisbane was founded in 1825 until the last mission closed in 1987. I believe this is the first time there's been a single list. And by the way, Michael designed this wonderful fold-out so that you can go backwards and forwards referencing the different reserves and missions, because sometimes they change names, sometimes they change place, sometimes reserves were moved and called something else. So it's a wonderful reference tool. And in white on grey, I should say, we listed the towns that were established in Queensland since Brisbane was first founded in 1825 up to the end of the century in 1899. So this very elegant book is available for $66, the standard copy, and we included the stamp, A Preponderance of Aboriginal Blood, with the number from the edition of 1,000. So that is the standard copy, and there is a copy, an edition of 100 that come with an etching. The etching is titled Inspection Tour and is taken from the map of the inspector's tour, which started in Brisbane and went up the coast visiting each of the reserves right up to Cape York Peninsula and to the islands adjacent to Cape York Peninsula. And that was 1931. So you have a choice. There's the deluxe edition for $275, and there's the standard edition for $66. You can contact us on info@grahamgalleries.com.au, and in any case, we'd like to hear from you. If you would like to know anything more about this book, please contact us. And now we'll go through a little example of this book. I do hope you have been as impressed by this publication as I have been, since Judy Watson made her artist book, A Preponderance of Aboriginal Blood, in 2005. This 2019 iteration explains further our history and the history and pain of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people in Queensland. Thank you for returning to my makeshift studio. Until next time, ciao.